One. Okay, trying to get together a discussion stream this week because I saw some rather interesting trailers that at least stood out to me in a couple different ways that I'm hoping will be discussion worthy. Right now we have introduce yourself. Let's start with Romeo.
Hi. uh, I am Vincent's friend, but I'm a weird person, so you'll hear some weird stuff from me probably, some weird
Yeah,
crap.
it's always good to have a weird perspective in with something that I might miss. Tachyon Blues back. I just decided, hell, he's into geeky stuff. Introduce yourself.
Well, weird people are always the most interesting. So I'm Tachyon Blue. I'm a political live streamer. I'm a liberal, but I talk with people across the political spectrum on YouTube, Kick, and Twitch. You can find me there at Tachyon Blue. I'm also an author. I wrote Gamergate First Battle of the Culture War in 2019. I'm currently working on two projects. I'm interviewing a bunch of people. I've interviewed over 70 people involved with the Gamergate controversy for a multi-volume book. Many of those interviews and segments of those interviews are available on my channel on YouTube. And I'm also working on another book too, where I'm interviewing people relating to multi-user dungeons. Two of them in particular at a convention in St. Louis next month. So that should be fun. Happy to be back, Vincent.
Oh, good to have you back for more casual. Let's hope we're keeping it casual. Sort of a discussion about trailers. So everyone knows about the MCU. And I'm, of course, Vincent Martin. For anyone watching this on Tachyon Blue or anyone clips this, who knows? Madman with the YouTube channel. Interested in communications, rather random and chaotic, but I like to have fun and think a little bit differently about things. But we're going into a brave new world. I want everyone to follow along. So I will stop. And if anyone wants me to stop the video, you can either say pause or banana. It's always good to have banana as a safe word in any
How about
case.
penis?
No, stop. No
Hey,
feet
we're past the
either.
first 15
Okay.
seconds.
Yeah. Okay. So, Brave New World. I'm sure everyone's seen this and raving reviews about it or hating it like everything else. Let's start it up.
Wilson. Thanks for coming in.
Well, thank you for the invite, sir. I have to admit, I'm still getting used to the new look.
They said lose the mustache or lose the election.
Banana.
Okay. Yeah. I was on the ball with that. You guys.
All right, so Harrison Ford playing a president again. I thought Harrison Ford he did a pretty good job in Air Force One. Granted, that was in the 1990s. I don't know if Harrison's maybe declined a bit or doesn't care really about acting as much. So we'll see how he does in this. But interesting choice for the president. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's never a bad pick. Sometimes not the greatest pick with his declining in age, but at least he has the sort of a feel of authority opposed to the original actor. I don't know why he wasn't recruited. And they sort of had that meta joke in there, which I think some people are leaning into. Good enough for me. Romeo probably won't have much. He's for the Lincoln stuff. But if you do want to comment, feel free.
You and I haven't always agreed in the past, but I want to make another run at making Captain America an official military position.
And if we disagree on how to manage this situation.
Okay. So, obviously, he's not Captain America from the start of this. Captain America is just a symbol, an icon, or something like that. Any disagreements or thoughts any more deeper, possibly?
Good, Romeo.
This looks like a Netflix series. Like, it has that same look. I don't know how to explain that. Like a drama
What?
Netflix series. And it looks like it was filmed on a DSL like R camera. So
Yes. So Romeo is an artist, so he's going to definitely be hypercritical towards the sort of stylized, and I I'm basically colorblind and aesthetics don't affect me too much. Hell, I'm one of those gamers who can play games capped on 30 frames per minute and not be too bothered by it, unless it's a really bad game. Which
Did you
for
say
some,
minute?
hmm,
Did you say 30 frames per minute?
per second. I probably just
Okay.
misspoke there. 30 frames per second. Okay. Yes.
So
Thank you for that correction.
so Falcon here. Again, I'm not a huge Marvel fan at all. I don't hate Marvel. I generally enjoy the movies when I watch them, but I wouldn't say I'm like a super fan at all. But Falcon's asking a good question here. If he's going to be entering underneath the president, serving the government, obviously there's going to be a chain of command, and he's not going to be at the top of that. So he's asking a pretty good question. But he already knows the answer to this, certainly, right? Like, of course, if you're serving an official U.S. government capacity, you're going to have to answer to the president. That's just how it is.
Yes, unless you're working under a hush hush committee, black ops sort of thing, where
Right.
president needs deniability. But that wouldn't be the case since he wants him to put the sort of Captain America suit back on, even though he has his own identity, which is going to be a large component of the discourse going forward, which I'm not going to be happy about probably. I mean, it's not the problem of the discourse around it. It's the fact it's going to be extremely reductive in quality from a lot of the loudest people. And I think it's much deeper. Okay.
Oh, what do you expect? What kind of hot takes do you think people are going to have, Vincent?
Well, of course, TEI to start with. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And then there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff is why did fucking the Winter Soldier get cucked and crap like that. It's going to be just missing the point well before the movie even comes out. I just find this habit of, and I'm not trying to do that with this. I'm trying to have a constructive sort of discussion about how the series is probably going to be. Well, predictions. We did this with Silent Hill 2 with Romeo and a few other people. I thought it was good to sort of explore it. So we'll see how this turns out here.
Then what happens?
Work with me, Sam. We'll show the world a better way forward.
Okay, Banana. What was this glass enclosure they had him in? It's kind of weird. I understand he's the president. He's probably surrounded by bulletproof glass, but like, it looked like he was surrounded completely by it. It just like a weird scene.
Okay, let's go back. Maybe even slow it down a little bit.
Or maybe I'm
Slow-mo.
crazy.
No, it definitely is an interesting thing. Marvel definitely works their VR. I guess this is a practical effect. Let's slow it down a little bit. I mean, there's definitely some fear that they're going to try to turn Harrison Ford. It looks like it's just a panel that's in front of him.
Oh, because okay, maybe it is. It did look like the glass was like surrounding him a bit, but it could just be in front of him.
It did actually. I do agree with that particular.
And that does look
thing.
like
And
an evil look. Do you see that smirk he's got?
Yeah, there's going to be people concerned about turning someone like Harrison Ford into the villain, but we don't know that yet. Okay, so I think it might be interesting if they try to walk the line with the character of Harrison Ford. Like, yeah, he might be evil, might be doing evil things, but you can understand the sort of evil nature for the character.
Yeah, I don't care if they make him evil as long as they have a really fleshed out character, and like probably making him like pure evil, like, oh, hail Hydra, like that would be stupid. Like have him be like a complex, nuanced character, and if you do make him quote unquote evil, like make him more of a nuanced, like dark gray, like he's still trying to do what he thinks is best, but he has like a very divergent goal from what Falcon has. Like if you're gonna go that route.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, they're definitely sort of hinting that he's going to be, well, from underneath discourse and who he is and who he's in the comic books. There's also other talk out there. Let's not get too bogged down by what other people are saying this time around. But it's good to know what other people are thinking to sort of predict your own course. Yeah.
Sir, your inner circle's been compromised.
Okay, so we got him just working for the government. Plot comes about. I'm wondering really where the Captain America. I mean, they're doing a smart thing using the Captain America, especially since the Winter Soldier. It sort of has that sort of espionage vibe to it. So this will be accepted by people who enjoyed the rest of, well, at least the Winter Soldier movie.
I
don't know
actually haven't
about the,
seen Winter Soldier. I've only seen Civil War, to be honest. So
yeah, not a big fan of Civil War or even Winter Soldier. But there is some components within here that I am liking what I'm seeing. I really wish the writers had a better background. They would put more faith in this particular project because they're definitely promoting it to put it in theaters. And the quality of it is rather inconsistent, but February, that's still sometimes off.
well, what's your big concern so far from what you've seen in terms of quality?
That the setup for this in particular is just going to be a bait and switch. Personally, okay, I'm liking everything I'm seeing in this trailer, and I can sort of I know from this trailer I could probably put together a really good story, at least in theory. Okay, is it what Disney going to do? Probably not. And how well is it going to fit into the universe? Because that's something Disney has sucked with, and that's something I think might be a little overhyped by some fans in some areas. Like, why didn't the Avengers pop up in Black Widow? Okay, that was like a criticism I saw that I did not understand. Okay, but there's a lot of criticism out there from other perspectives. MCU is definitely suspect, but I'm hoping they're becoming smarter. Maybe my hope is all in vain.
Either you can't see that or you don't want to. What if it's a trap? Global power is shifting. You're just a pawn.
Oh, whoa, I still have it in slow-mo. I didn't even realize it. Whoops. Okay. I mean, I'm liking the trailer might be a little bit overhyped in a lot of things here and there, but I'm liking the look of it.
Yeah, I do too.
Romeo, you're the hypercritical guy. Are you finding any more problems with this besides the quality of the film you're saying? DSL?
Well, it kind of feels a bit cheap in some ways. Like some of the set kind of looks very plasticky in some areas, or just like it has that Marvel feel. I don't know if you know the feel of like the Marvel look. How
Oh,
would you say?
trust me. There's much worse looks. The 80s looked much worse in my opinion. So I just have a
But
different standard, I guess.
but I will say it kind of looks more like a political horror movie or a thriller.
Yeah, that's what I was
political
thinking, like a
thriller.
political thriller. Yeah, which I'm kind of into. So, but that's not for everybody, of course.
I mean, so Marvel. I mean, it's already established with the Winter Soldier, and how I don't even like calling the last Captain America Civil War Captain America. I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. Just call it Avengers Civil War. Why did you have to put it under the? No, never mind. Stop capping Marvel, okay? Because some of this stuff is just odd, just odd.
You may be Captain America, but you're not Steve Rogers.
You're right. I'm not.
Here's the line that I'm wondering. I'm taken for good granted. Okay. A lot of people complain. I don't know if this is sort of a critique of people like the replacement of people. It's definitely going to be on everyone's tongues, but I think just acknowledging this in the trailer, he's not trying to replace Captain America, is probably a sign of good self awareness.
Yeah, well, I think also so. I guess first off, I'm perfectly fine if they make Captain America like a position or like symbolic, like Robin. There's multiple different Robins. There's multiple different Captain Americas. I'm totally fine with that. And Steve Rogers passing the torch, right, essentially to Falcon. I think that that's totally fine. If you're going to like replace a character, quote unquote, like that's the way to do it, rather than just like pretending that you just race swap them and gender swap them or whatever, and be like, oh yeah, they were always this. I think having them pass the torch to their successor, I think that's probably fine. And I think that the way he delivered this line here too is interesting too, because he's talking with Harrison Ford, he's talking with the president, and he's basically telling him, I'm not him. Basically, that he probably is going to operate very differently than the way Steve Rogers did, or at least he has like different viewpoints or philosophy that guides him. That might put him at odds with the president.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things you can pull out of this. Market wise, I think this is good, but and I think I'm getting the feeling I have a really weird philosophy towards media, probably a little bit too academic for most people. It's all about the genre cycle. Okay, you have I use a very simplified version. You have the OG, the sort of the deconstruction, which we're getting a lot of nowadays. But it's sort of the Phoenix cycle. The Phoenix is flying, he rises, he gets killed, and what it comes out from the sort of flames rises again. That's the sort of general sentiment. You deconstruct the sort of genre or characters around, which I think Disney does a horrible job of deconstructing. Something like The Boys, at least in theory, did it better. Watchmen, the original one, did it much better. There is a way. I think they were trying to do that with like a She-Hulk. I think they were trying to do taking advantage of the fourth wall break. Probably losing some people here, but the general point is Marvel. I think Disney in general has done a horrible job at a deconstruction. And this almost seems like it's a reconstruction. Like this is what they're going to want it to be. It seems like Sam Wilson here, the Falcon, is going to have to earn the title of Captain America in this movie. That's just the general feel what I get from this trailer. And I think it's a smart decision. Is it going to be well written or anything like that? Who knows?
So you think that having him have to earn the title will make him endearing to fans, whereas if it was just given to him, then people would perhaps rightly complain?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to just give him the sort of mantle, he didn't earn it. I mean, he definitely has done a lot of stuff in the Marvel universe, like Civil War. He was definitely a big part of Civil War. He's done a lot to show that he can hang with these people. But even within Civil War, those dynamics, they set up the leadership. You had this Tony Stark and you had the Captain America. And as good as Falcon is, and as well established as he has been in the series so far, he's still it's probably smart for him to sort of step up to this role instead of it just being given to him. Simple as that. I like the direction.
Yeah. Well, I think that'll make it. I think fans would probably prefer that as well.
Yeah, fans would definitely prefer it that way, and I'm hoping this is going to go well. But everyone's going to be doubtful on Marvel and Disney, probably rightfully so, in many ways.
It looks like he smells farts.
Yes. Well, he is around old men. No, okay, let me not go there. And And I am curious because I did find out the trailer was originally, I actually used it as my thing. It was New World Order, and they're changing it to Brave New World. And I do hear this is this is having some rewrites.
As
So
long as the ultimate product is good, I don't care. As long as if they have to rewrite it or if they change the title.
Yeah, there's a lot of elements within this that I am skeptical on, but I thought it was at least worth going over in part and probably even discussing a little bit further. So, thoughts, feelings about this trailer. Overall, good, bad. I think we went through it pretty well right from the get-go there.
Yeah, I enjoyed the trailer. I enjoyed it the first time I watched it when you sent it to me as well. It looks interesting. It looks like it could be the kind of film I would want to watch, but it's also Marvel too. I'm sure it's not going to be like super deep, most likely. Could be wrong. Maybe it will be.
Yeah, I doubt it's going to be live up to the hype that people are going to try to place upon it. It's some big shoes to fill there, and I'm just wondering how Marvel's going to go because there's not the Ahsoka, because they're doing some interesting things over at Disney, and I'm trying to figure out what they're trying to do with this. Is like, is anyone tuned into the Alkalite discourse out there? I followed it along. I have not watched it. Okay.
I've not seen it either. I know everyone's talking about it, but I've not seen it.
Yeah, I'm keeping my distance from it. It just seems like a weird sort of match here, and of course, that's gonna poison the well for the other people talking about it. Sort of sad that there's like two team sports for this. You're either you're all for or all against. There doesn't seem to be much middle ground with discussing these movies.
Because it's Disney or because of quote wokeness unquote?
Both. Okay. You can. There's the evil corporate angle that everyone always takes, and of course the wokeness angle, which Disney seems to be pulling back somewhat on. There's lawsuits abound, at least from the rumors. I don't know what to believe about the rumors, but yeah, I think it's really smart to try to rebuild the brand from more simple engagement out there. And this is phase 5, I believe we're going into.
So we've obviously there's so many different Marvel films and series now.
Yeah.
I personally I'm like way the fuck out of the loop. I know a lot of people are super fans. They probably watch everything, but are we reaching a point now where it's like there's just too much content for you to consume to be caught up on everything as like an average Marvel fan or average moviegoer?
I do agree. And the way things connect sometimes are very loosely. It really is and there's a lot of timey-wimey mess with the multiverse, which is always a mistake, okay? Going the multiverse angle is always dangerous for under talented writers. It's always going to piss people off because the logic is always fuzzy. But that was sort of the end game, the element that was heavily introduced in Endgame. I think that was more just a lack of direction. And I definitely see some serious direction in this movie. And I think this is a better way to actually take the series. Or maybe just let it die. Just kill it all off. Might actually be smart. Okay. Because superhero fatigue is. This is why we're it's getting so bad. Something like The Boys is just blatantly going from satire to outright whatever. I haven't watched the 4th season, but the deconstruction of superheroes, I think, is overdone at this point.
Though I am still enjoying Invincible.
I haven't watched the 2nd season. It was definitely quite an interesting thing. I think it's a little bit overhyped, but maybe I overhyped some of the 90 cartoons like Batman the Animated Series and other stories like that. I don't know. It's the
What I
walk.
like, you haven't seen season 2, so I'm not going to spoil anything. But um, what I do like about season 2, especially, is that it focuses a lot on the adult characters, like adult drama, because now he's in college, and I think that that's done really well. They actually show like the characters being complex, and that they're definitely not perfect. You'll see a lot if you watch season 2. You'll see a lot of character development, I think.
Okay. Maybe I'll have to give that another try. I mean, I like the idea. I was just sick of deconstructions and because they were just saturating the market. And most of them, I think, just sort of break down. But I'm highly critical when it comes to deconstruction in media. Like, Deadpool went lightly into it. And I think that's what Marvel was trying to do with She-Hulk Attorney at Large. Both of them have that fourth wall breaking thing. It's always a delicate. Go on.
Is it just with our media that people live in this, I don't know, culture of critique or whatever you want to call it, the deconstruction? Or is it just like every aspect of our lives now, where everything is deconstructed, and like there can be value in that and like analyzing everything, but no one ever comes up with solutions anymore, I feel. No one talks about solutions. They all have their critiques, but it's not, okay, here's what we should do.
Exactly. I once pitched the idea to a group of certain people who were very critical of the sequel trilogy of like getting together as a group and rewriting the sequel trilogy. You know, I pitched the idea. They weren't really into it. Maybe people, and these, I would say that maybe they're just tired of talking about The Last Jedi and all those, but they still talk about it. So I think the thing is a lot of the discourse is more about entertainment than information. You can sometimes squeeze some sort of insight out of the information that comes out of all these lovely little critiques, but they're rarely about the media nowadays. It's all about the culture around it. Almost like a critical theory, in my opinion. Okay, I have some wacky theories about critical theory, how the culture war.
I'll set you up with Wick. We'll have to debate that soon.
Okay, yeah. My weird theories about critical theory is that there's so many fucking critical theories, you know. Of course, the most famous one is critical race theory, queer theory, intersectional feminism is a critical theory. I think, and I've seen on the right, there's a post-liberalist headed up by Catholics who are almost, that's why I call it church critical theory, okay, or church social justice warriors. They've almost made their own sort of critical theory based on the doctrines instead of social justice of the church. I think it's just spreading, but that's one of my wild takes that I'm well known is hard to argue for. And I think it might seem like a weird pivot, but I think that has sort of made its way into the culture of criticism that we have more broadly, even though it attempts to be non-political. There's those political undertones that seep in slowly, probably through the audience majorly to a large degree.
Romeo, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I think I've told Vincent about my school. When I was in school, I had to take like critical race theory classes. But like, besides that whole subject, I don't really have anything on the TV show, movie, whatever it's called. I'm just not interested in that stuff. So.
Okay, well, if there was more people here, I'm sure we could have milked out more, but some bums didn't want to come along. That's fine. That's fine.
BMO is working.
Huh?
BMO is working. That's why he couldn't come.
I know he couldn't come. It's other people, but it's fair enough. Okay. Let's get into this. Okay. I definitely want Tachyon's take on this. Okay.
Oh boy.
Also, your take. Oh, well, if you're willing to give it, you can sort of bow out. Romeo wanted to definitely have something to say about this. Because Lover of Men's after Cleopatra seems like an interesting pick to go with.
He is considered a sacred figure by both Republicans and Democrats.
He led the nation through its greatest crisis.
He's on our currency. We build monuments to him.
He's the greatest president the United States has ever had.
Today, the big question that people are asking is...
Hold on. I had to preempt the man. Or, sorry, the woman. Sorry. Don't like to misgender people here. But still, look at how they... I'm probably a little bit weird. I like to look at the rhetoric of some of these things. It's a little bit harder for something like a Marvel thing, but for a setup like this, it's very interesting. They're building this man up as, the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Okay, so you got that build up. Now you have this reveal.
Well, and it's interesting. So I'm not sure if either of you remember, but there was a discourse a few years ago, I guess during like the BLM period, and thankfully I think this has died down, but where people were actually criticizing Lincoln quite heavily as in sort of like trying to reevaluate his historical role as being quite negative because he was like relatively moderate on ending slavery. Like he wanted to do it, but he would be willing to accept keeping it in the short term if it meant that saving the Union. And also like he had some other things in his history that people criticize him for.
Yeah.
Which, that's fair. You can criticize historical figures, but also just recognize too that, I think you have to look at the totality of the person and the totality of their contributions. And also, how do you guys feel about judging people by modern day standards? I'm generally against that, though.
Yeah.
We can
That
discuss.
was something I was going to bring up. Like they bring up the word queer. Okay. He wouldn't have used that word ever. Okay. Well, he definitely would have been queer by his, I think his era standard. Queer meant weird. Okay. Simply as that. That's the older term. It probably even had an even older term. I remember I like making that joke about, yeah, I'm queer because I'm weird. Okay. I'm not really, I'm mostly straight. Okay. So I don't want to identify it. I see queer as a really weird label that even cis guys can get away with sometimes. I'm queer because I'm metrosexual. I only date women, but I dress like a gay guy and talk like a woman, so queer. That's an opinion, just to be clear about that. But yeah,
they build him up. But
yep.
He's Lincoln. I mean, I think for the vast majority of Americans, he is generally regarded quite heavily.
Yeah, I mean, there's least critiques for him because no matter if he was hesitant or not, as you said, by modern day standards, and I went off on this whole weird queer tangent because that's what I do sometimes. Yeah, definitely had some values in a very turbulent time, and he got the hit for it. And hell, this is one hell of a time to bring up Lincoln given assassinate. Let's not get into that. Try to avoid that.
I mean, that's content
everywhere.
For you. If you want to make clips out of it, you can.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Every fucking where.
Was Abraham Lincoln gay?
In the 19th century, for many men, their closest relationships were other men, and same for women.
Men would live with another man when they're single, and often did, and shared beds.
Lincoln probably slept in the same bed with men more than he did with women.
One of the things that fascinates scholars is his bedding down with Joshua Speed for 4 years.
There is love between those two men.
See, God, whatever happened to the bromance? Are we not allowed to have these? They're going to just automatically assume, sort of almost as dumb as the freaking right-wing, the dissident right-wing discourse about tomboys not being real women. I mean, you got the cringe on both sides, okay? But what happened to the bromance? Anything setting you off yet, Romeo, or are you just waiting a little bit more for it to build, like Psycho 100?
We can continue watching it.
Okay. Yes, there's one particular point that again, I'm taking a look at sort of the flow of this. They have a whole bunch of scenes. They're like, yeah, a lot of people were like this. Like, not Old Country for Old Man. There was one. There's some weird stuff in. There's some weird stuff in westerns and even prison cultures. Would you say those guys who do those homosexual acts are necessarily gay in prison, or are they just desperate? Okay, not something I wanted. Sorry, I don't know why I'm bringing that up, and I'm wanting to back off of that shit because I don't know enough about it. But that is something I think is pretty well established. So it's an interesting. I'm not saying they're going to be
People
wrong.
sleep with the people they're around, more or less, right?
Yes, and love is. There was a slogan, "Love is love." Okay, but there's different types of love.
When you put together all of the evidence, it's really startling.
Lincoln has a type: dashing, daring.
We have this notion that if you have an attraction like that, boom, that's your orientation.
Sexuality through the mid-19th century was far more fluid.
But for someone who wanted a political career, it was mandatory that you have a wife.
Dear Speed, I shall be very lonesome without you. Yours forever, Lincoln.
Oh, how romantic. I mean, there's also the sort of culture around men within the military also that can get pretty close. Okay. I'm not liking all this talk about the culture, how this isn't known. So because of these letters, they're going to jump to these weird conclusions. It's just the trailer that's setting me off. Maybe the documentary
Isn't
will
it
be good.
isn't it just one letter basically that a lot of this is based on too, where they talk about, they bring it up in this trailer even later on. We'll just let it play.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's other supporting sort of speech within it, but I think it's primarily just this one letter from what I know. But I'm not all over the place. But
yeah, I'm not a historian on this, to be clear.
What you have in the 19th century was very strict marriage culture. Get married, and then everything is possible.
Captain David Derrickson became friends with Lincoln while they were living here at the cottage.
There is a soldier here devoted to the president, and when Mrs. L is not home, sleeps with him. What stuff?
He was seen wearing the president's nightshirt.
Banana.
If you want a smoking gun,
That's the letter. I'm pretty sure that a lot of this is based on. Like, it is true that he did sleep with these other people, like in the same bed with them, from my understanding. But I think that letter right there is like one of like the few pieces of evidence of people speculating on this at the time, even.
yeah, it seems like a weird way to base a whole theory on. And I legitimately believe with Lincoln, it's the most believable. He's sort of like he's the odd one out. He had the sort of weird sort of condition, I believe. So, I forgot about
what
it.
condition. Wait, let me look this up.
Okay. I should have done some research, but I like to shoot from my hip and go from my memory. And sometimes my memory's wrong. I just heard he had some sort of condition that made him like really lanky, like he was. And it gave him health problems. But some of that could be hearsay. And a lot of this trailer is speculating off of very little evidence. And
it's speculated he may have Marfan syndrome, which made him have that gately walk.
Yeah. Thank you, Romeo. Okay. Very good information getter, Romeo here. But yeah. Okay. Freaking Lucifer's right. I say okay too much.
gun, here it is.
But then you see all these shifts to the end of the 19th century.
Oh.
Freud was devastated.
Can you go back a few frames and slow it down?
Probably too much.
Go back. Wait, no, go. Okay, keep going. I want to see the gay man in a dress.
What you have in the 19th century was very strict marriage culture.
That's what metrosexual Vincent looks like. But he always has.
Hey! Don't reveal my deep and dark secrets. Okay, I keep.
He's
that
actually
on
involved with
DL.
the film. That's him. No, you went back way too far, Vincent.
Like.
How could you tell? How could you tell? Okay, I'm pulling a rug on all you guys. That is me. You're right. I'm caught. Let's move on.
Went back way too far.
And then everything is possible.
Captain David Derrickson became friends with Lincoln while they were living here at the cottage.
There is a soldier here devoted to the president, and when Mrs. L.
Is this what you wanted, Romeo?
I wanted the gay researcher or historian that had earrings on and a dress.
Okay. I did not catch that.
L is not home, sleeps with him. What stuff?
He was seen wearing the president's nightshirt.
If you want a smoking gun, here it is.
But then you see all these shifts to the end of the 19th century.
Ah, that guy?
Can we
Smoking
please?
gun, here it is.
But then you see all these shifts to the end of the 19th.
That person, I'm guessing.
Oh gosh.
So
Tachyon,
it's not a good look in my view. But you know what? If he's done the vibe this is giving me is that this guy who's the researcher, right? It seems like he might have like an interest in finding a particular outcome with his research. But at the same time, I don't know what his research is. Maybe he's entirely above board, and he does a very thorough job. So I don't want to like cast out on this person. I don't even know his name. So
I'm just judging this person's outfit and look. So
yeah, you're gay, so you have the gay pass.
Smoking gun, here it is.
But then you see all these shifts.
Yeah, I'm bringing this back to him
19th.
just so Romeo can have a
shit.
wonderful visual aid. I didn't even mean to press play. I meant to say, but my main.
Okay, so first of all, I don't like other gays that dress like this. To be honest, like,
who even knows if he's gay? Could just be a cross-dresser. Okay, not every cross-dresser is gay. Okay, shouldn't make such assumptions, Romeo.
Why is my gaydar going off? So
okay,
I have it right in my
gaydar. I don't.
Yeah, well, hey, you know what? If I get $500 in super chats during the live stream, one of the live streams while I'm at SimuCon, $500, I'm gonna wear a fucking cat suit. So,
yeah. Dev actually
Save your money.
shaved his head into a mohawk for $500 from JMac.
Based.
Good old JMac, supporting most of the centrist out there. Even Dev still.
I'm okay. If I saw that person in the street, I would run the other way. Just saying. I just get bad vibes.
This part really freaked. This part, like how much of an influence was Freud sort of in this culture then? I don't think he was that big of an influence. A lot of people thought he was a quack. Okay, they thought he had some weird ass ideas. It isn't until some of his sort of students who followed along and built upon some of his really wacky ideas. Just to let you know, I respect Freud. I'm fine with throwing out wacky theories and see what sounds good. But as an academic, from an academic angle, I'm not academic. Consider yourself academic in today's age. It's not great unless you can point to some credentials, or good paper. But Freud really, I don't think, had a strong influence on society back then. He was just a rising voice on cocaine. It just seems a little doubtful here when they're saying Freud. And you know who's a bigger freaking... Quick question. Does anyone know who actually influenced a lot of the gender ideas that's out there now? A researcher.
No idea.
I believe it was Kinsey. He did the twin studies, which was highly skeptical, which highly criticized, and definitely would be unethical. Kinsey research. Yeah. Kinsey research. Sexologist and biologist. did some really crazy stuff, and he even established the Kinsey Institutes. And there's some really odd ideas that comes out of the Kinsey Institute. Just going to point it out, he wasn't the only academic sort of who made an impact on this sort of area. Kinsey came afterwards, though. Freud is definitely one of the earlier ones.
Freud was devastating.
Oh, go ahead. Keep going.
Okay.
To sexuality. Defining very rich.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a very interesting one, and I'm wondering if it's playing in, because I've seen this done before with the transsexual movement, like them trying to compare. They used to have homosexuality as a mental disorder back in the day, so why are we going to consider being trans a mental gender dysphoria? And I find that optically, I think it's a good argument, but I think they are different. Being attracted to your same sex could happen.
Vincent, do you think that non-binary people are real?
Do I think they're real? I know there are people who don't fit the exact male-female dynamic. Do I think most non-binary people who identify that should identify as non-binary? Probably not, but I'm willing to give those people a space to figure out their sexuality so they don't feel like they have to transition. That's the reason that I will actually am fine with non-binary. It's an agendered sexuality that's sort of a safe space for people who are confused and for some people who are legitimately not either male or female biologically. What about you?
I'm a trans medicalist. I'm not an expert on trans issues,
bigot.
but I do believe that yes, that having gender dysphoria is a legitimate medical issue, and that those people should receive medical care, and that we should study and continue to study what the best treatments are for these people without a political lens one way or the other, so that we can offer them the best help that they need. And and when it comes to non-binary stuff, I think that gender like is a spectrum to some extent, right? That they're masculine and feminine traits. Everyone's going to possess some mix of these traits, and not everyone's like, oh, I'm 100% quote unquote masculine coded versus feminine coded, right? You're going to have a mix of different things, and you're going to fall at different points on that spectrum. But at the end of the day, you're still either like a man or a woman, or in some cases, right, very rarely, but you do have people who are intersex, right, and don't really fit either of those definitions. But non-binary itself, I think it's more of a cultural phenomenon. I don't know how like harmful, quote unquote, it is, but I don't think that like affirming it or putting it in the same category as being transgender or a medical condition or an immutable characteristic is quite right.
Oh, I agree. I'm accepting of it just because of the utility of it. Because I'm often going through a lot of this stuff I do. I think there's a lot of people who try to give people certain intent. Like they assume the intent of all these people on all these different sides. And I'm just like, okay, let's fucking cut the noise. What's the result? Okay. Determining the intent is just almost a useless trade that I see people doing. What is the outcome of this? And for some of the trans activists, I don't want to go too deeply into this. They sort of dismiss all the fucking research that's being done that doesn't go in their favor. Okay. It's a landmine. Okay.
It is. That's why I asked you.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Hard question.
Hey, you asked me about Rittenhouse, so.
Yeah. Rittenhouse.
I missed some shit, so sorry. I had something.
It's fine. It's fine. Also,
you're talking about trans problems?
Just sort of the non-binary category. You might as well weigh in
Oh,
on that.
Jesus.
You're probably the most conservative out of all of us, I think.
Yes. Yes, I am.
Do you not? You want to plead the fifth for this one? Okay, that's fine.
I think I'd like to talk about it a bit later because I just don't want to mess up this section of the stream.
Oh, it's one of my streams. It's bound to be messed up at some point. Probably several points. Okay.
rigid categories.
And they're saying if a man loves another man, it's unnatural.
Homosexuality.
But it is. I recently reread fucking hell, it's not Brave New Worlds. It's another classic sci-fi book. And that is quite interesting. Let me just look it up because I'm a dumbass. Okay, Forever War. And that's quite a wild ride when it comes to homosexuality. Okay. There's a way that they try to do population control by turning everyone into homosexuals. And since it's such an old book, it's really funny to see how they discuss that in the book.
Is a mental illness.
It was not only wrong, it was punishable. If Lincoln were to look down today, he would see the United States at a particularly fragile moment.
History is so important.
No, I think Lincoln would understand, even if he was, okay? I'm not even going to discount that he might have been bisexual in some way, maybe even full homo, okay? I don't have the evidence for it. I can't say one way or another. I can say this particular framing in this particular section is setting up a certain narrative for why they want to sort of build this sort of narrative about Lincoln. Just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, so we do indeed, I think, live in quite interesting times. But I don't think that like the reason for that is because, well, I don't know, fuck, dude, maybe there is but I don't think that like being gay is like some sort of like scarlet letter in the year 2024. Probably like the least so out of any point
yeah,
of view in
absolutely.
history.
That's also that's just insane that they're like there's
Well, they
plenty
didn't
of
expressly
conservatives who
say
are
that in
fine.
the trailer.
They didn't explicitly say it, but it's definitely heavily implied. All this is just talking around it, trying to use this as I definitely can't get behind this as it's presented in the trailer. I will probably be watching this because I'm really liking how I probably should get back into breaking down some documentaries. Maybe I'll start with Airplay. Maybe it's full of shit and Gamergate was really a whole bunch of harassers.
Hey, maybe you should go ahead and
Yeah,
do
maybe.
it. You should do it. Also,
Would
look at
rather.
Savvy Liser's video. Break that apart too if you
Okay.
want.
Okay, link that one to me. No, but I went through like the Red Pill movement first. I don't know why I was comparing it to the Gawker documentary, but I thought no matter how I compared them basically in their technique. Like you had a female feminist in the Red Pill who go into the MRA, expecting them to be like sexist and all this stuff, and find out she's wrong. And the way it's presented is just a way better way than they tried to do in the Gawker documentary, which was just god shit awful from what I remember. Them trying to make all these people look bad and Gawker spreading all this misinformation and whatever they wanted. No, what they don't get free speech, okay? They're telling fucking lies and they're making money off of it. Okay?
Wait, you looked at Cassie J's documentary?
Yeah.
Wow, what do you think?
I thought it was well presented. It had a slight whiff of bullshit, but there's really nothing I thought it was extremely persuasive of a documentary. That's why I used it as a comparison. I thought it was well done. It looked at both sides. But sort of like it wasn't as bad as What is a Woman? Okay. But it had a slight tinge that just set off my radar, but nothing tangible to really call it out. Just because it was so effective at making the MRA movement look good and make Cassie look like a completely impartial person, and it just set off my radar a little bit of how well it was effective.
Okay, I haven't seen the documentary, but I've wanted to watch it actually. It's on my to watch list.
It's extremely good.
I do want to touch upon. We did talk about how there doesn't really seem to be like this great crusade against gay people in the year 2024, but there is, I think, a backlash against the trans stuff, which is different. It's a different topic.
Yeah, I think they're overstepping their
sexuality.
bounds by going for the children. Okay, I think that's where they're overstepping.
Yeah,
A
I
lot
think,
of
but
people.
there's overstepping, I think, on both sides. But
Oh, of course. But I think the general population is against trans in the kids, as they like to say it. Okay. And you have the left who's saying that this is a trans genocide. Okay. But you go on. Your thoughts on that particular matter?
okay, sure. I shoot, man. I don't know as much about the trans stuff as I really probably should. Maybe I'll have to do a deep dive at some point. Um, I think that a lot of the trans stuff on the quote unquote like the pro trans side, I think that some of that has gone too far. There's sort of a quick to call everyone who disagrees with them or criticizes them or expresses even a little bit of skepticism a bigot, and there is a reluctance to accept that maybe certain medical interventions might not be good, or that or some people are like fucking crazy, right? You have like the fucking um the people who the people who like think that they're like 4-year-olds trans, but I think that's like a super tiny
You work
minority.
hard
I
on your
think that
marketing,
that's like
but
I think that
does it?
that's a super fringe minority. Um, but unfortunately, there is like this reluctance to accept certain information or certain science, and want to suppress that. But I think also too that like some of the people on the right, like you don't have to go too far uh, on Twitter to find like major right wing accounts that basically do what I don't know like a trans genocide, but like they do definitely play into that, right? The person I exposed as a harasser and a liar and a scammer, or someone who's misrepresenting his credentials. I'm not talking about Mark Kern in this case, mind you. Your best friend. I'm talking about Patrick Ryan. Now he's not like a major player or anything, but like if you went through like his Twitter feed, it's all about how he wants like murder trans people. There's actually somebody in the Gamergate history Discord server uh, who does advocate for trans people killing themselves. He loves it. He thinks it's great.
One of your
They
trolls.
had to make a new rule. They had to make a new rule in the server to stop him from doing this
Oh
because he
God,
was way
yeah.
out of line.
Yeah, there's always going to be someone. Are they serious or are they just being a troll looking for yucks? It's always hard to
Yeah,
tell
but you can find a
nowadays.
lot of like major accounts. Like I want to like name names. I don't have them pulled up like right away immediately, and I want to like name somebody who didn't actually do it. Um, but there's definitely a lot of like large accounts that like definitely encourage like trans suicides.
Oh yeah, absolutely. A lot of post liberals are extremely insane on this particular angle. Okay, and they're trying to take advantage of. They're like, okay, we got them with the trans kid stuff. We got the general populace. Let's see if we can push this a little bit further along. That's how it feels to me, and it's getting to a ridiculous level. Of course, that's everything on the internet, and it's more I'm hoping it's not well, Twitter is not a representation of real people. Most of the people on Twitter don't do much on Twitter, and a lot of the
Right,
people who
I
do
would agree.
stuff on Twitter don't do a lot with it. A lot of memeing and a lot of other shit talking. So I do understand where you're saying with that stuff, but there is a legitimate center concern around it that typically gets co-opted by the extremists on either side, in my opinion.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. We do have some. I have a couple chat question here from Porcelain
Oh.
Chips. Well, not a question. She says the bed thing, gender identity in the Victorian era, so on and so on. Basically, in that era, there was a lot of homosexual behavior that was considered quote more acceptable unquote than quote corrupting unquote a woman. You weren't supposed to talk about it, of course, and your social standing determined how much you needed to hide it or could just openly be whatever it was. People in the 1840s culturally share very little with us modern people in terms of expectations of social behavior, posturing, interacting with each other. Gentleman Jack from the BBC actually did a good job on touching on these issues in the 1810s. Last thing I'll spurg out on is that gender roles and sex roles and societal structures were very different, and the video playing here is trying to map backwards 20th century ideas onto the 19th century. I thought that
Yeah.
was interesting.
That's a lot. It's definitely a lot more. On the surface, I can understand it, and there are some cases like Oscar Wilde. I went through a video a while ago trying to claim I think it was the Wendigo one, the dude in Praise of Shadows. He was trying to say all these sort of Mary Shelley, Oscar Wilde. He put him in there, and he's like, even Lovecraft was undeniably queer. I'm like, what the fuck, Lovecraft? You're trying to
Wilde
own
was, I think,
one?
actually gay, right?
Yeah, Wilder. I think there's a lot of evidence to support that, even though he did have a family. Okay, there's a lot of supporting evidence for that, but it's not like something that just came out of nowhere. That's just something that's been talked about, and it just seems weird, especially with the the 19. What was it? The 1916 project, 1619 project.
1619.
Yeah, that was totally like, yes, let's get the view of history through the accounts of these black people, okay, and let's try to extrapolate the real history of America. No, that's not how it works. Yeah,
No, yeah, I agree.
the history is written by the victors, that's true, but the downtrodden will tend to have a jaded perception also.
Now, if they like the 1619 project, I've not gone through every single fucking paper that they've done. I've only read a couple of them, and this was a long time ago, mind you.
Yeah, same here.
Now, if they want to go through, what they would have done was go through and be like, okay, look, we think that there's aspects of history that have been overlooked, that people didn't really document the history of African Americans that well prior to, relatively recently in our history. So we want to go through with a fine-tooth comb and see what we can find, see if there's missing puzzle pieces and missing stories that we can include, that we can talk about in the in the modern day, that we can learn lessons from, and are parts of history that have been overlooked. I think that that's totally fine, but unfortunately, it's a political agenda. It seems to try and reframe the country's founding as 1619, which is ridiculous.
And I'm just going to briefly bring this up. Don't want to get into it. I might even do the stream unless I find something better to do. My Thursday night stream on the Yasuke stuff. I mean, I'm fine with people having opinions about all this stuff, but they're actually going after this academic, and it seems very sus on both sides. I can understand given the 1619 project, and not all those articles seem to be horrible when I went through it.
Right, to be clear, yeah.
Okay, there's just some that seemed really like, where are you going with this? Why? But it's been a while. Okay. That was some of my CRT researching days.
You should reach out to that researcher and invite him on. Interview him.
Maybe. I would like to do more interviews. I would like to have more deep issues to sort of deep dive through. Because at heart, I'm a bit of a research geek. Okay. This is why I sometimes this just seems stupid. Let me look into this quickly. Bold-faced lie, or they're just moving past. They're saying something's true and moving past that and moving to the next step. And that's always, it seems a little dishonest when you just claim something is true and move past that and act like it's true. You learn different stuff because your initial claim is true.
Well,
if that makes any sense.
We could spend all day talking about honesty and lying. But let's move on back to the trailer, I guess.
Yeah.
Unless you want to set up a stream sometime, but
no. I meant that comment was really good and got a lot of thoughts kicking. Then, unfortunately,
If Lincoln were to look down today, he would see the United States at a particularly fragile moment.
History is so important because it allows us to.
Again, I have to point out the fact that he would be like, you guys are living great, okay? We had to share beds. Maybe I got a little frisky with my male companions when I was lonely. But, that's just what we did back then. You guys got it good. You have sex robots and all sorts of shit like this.
Even if he did have sex with these men, which, it's not super far-fetched. Even if he did, would that make him gay? Or would that just mean, right? I mean, it would make him even bi? Or would it just be like, hey, look, we were both horny and we decided... Because, people, like you said, in prison, people in the military... People in mono-gender settings have sex with each other all the time, and I don't know if we traditionally think of those people as gay.
Yeah,
or maybe maybe the term gay isn't really even a useful term really in that sense. It's more like you're willing to have sex with men. I guess that makes you gay if you want to, but like you're not like I don't know if they have like the innate desire to have sex with men necessarily, or if it's the situational thing that arises.
As long as it's not situational disability. Or same, you don't have a lot of choices. You're horny as a man. You have the choice of just beating off on your own, imagining a woman, or you can imagine the guy giving you a blowjob as a woman. It depends on your frame of mind. Okay, there's a lot of self-delusion going on among people, and extreme situations, people find rationale.
Yeah,
like
Lincoln
a lot
was
of gamer gators.
right. Yeah, gamer gators. Lincoln was on the down low.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I just talked to a lot of people about this stuff on Grums and Kern, and they're like, yeah, he's cringe, blah, blah, blah. But those lefties deserve it. They've been blah, blah, blah. And people like us calling us racist, sexist, blah, blah, blah. So they feel justified. I see that everywhere, even for people who are like, yeah, Grums is dumb. All these people spreading this stuff. Yeah, it's not correct, but
I
don't
just
care.
don't like that he keeps seemingly lying about things. I just want him to be honest. But people saying that he's a scammer, like that's going too far unless you have actual receipts on that.
Well, he's got a lot of money for the game, then he's not willing to show what he spent the money on. Okay,
So
he
he
could show
hasn't.
that
I don't
money.
know. I haven't looked into that story. Like, so what's the most compelling evidence you've seen?
A lot of his projects, the crowdfunding, you just don't know what he's spending on. I mean, maybe he spent it on the game, but researching Grums' past, he probably did a lot of stupid stuff with that money to thinking that it would help his company, but it didn't. It's probably more incompetence in Grums' case, but
Yeah, but he's also he doesn't seem to be an especially honest actor. And when he was confronted by one of his former employees on Twitter, like pretty politely, actually, or pretty politely, one of his employees, former coworkers and subordinates, was talking about him in like an interview, and was like, didn't even really throw him under the bus. Just said, he's got some good qualities, some bad qualities, like anybody else. And then Grums just went like nuclear on him on Twitter. I'm not sure if you saw that.
No.
God, I wish I could remember the name of the person too, but I didn't document this because I don't really care.
But it's a funny
I'm
thing
sure
to
you
say,
could
yeah.
find it. I'm sure you could find it.
I'm sure. I'm gonna probably do a video trying to explain the whole thing. But let's not get too much off of it. Definitely good to bring up Grums and scam, and this definitely like, would you call something like this a scam? Okay. I wouldn't call it a scam, but it definitely seems to be reframing for political purpose.
Right. Well, they actually make the documentary, and they don't like deliberately lie. I guess they're not really scammers, right? They're just making a documentary that's might be wrong.
They can still be.
Or
That's why I
biased.
like the term con artist. Okay, they can twist things and not technically lie. Okay, you can.
Well, there's a lot of one thing I've noticed. Sorry, Vincent, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Okay.
People seldom at sea. Well, people lie all the time. But when you're actually like in a recorded conversation with somebody, it's less common, it seems, for them to deliberately outright lie. It seems much more common, from my experience, although that does happen. People do outright lie. More common for people to try and very much dodge and distract away from things, and never really admit when they're like called out and wrong. They'll just deflect to some other topic.
Yeah, pivot in. Okay.
Yep.
Pivoting and moving on. Gaslighting. I mean, this definitely has a feel of, yeah, let's continue it. Okay. Because we want to get to then so we can get our gay representative thoughts on this, if we're not boring him to death with all our tangents.
Just to understand who we were, who we might become.
Lincoln's legacy is the insistence on equality. We have been in the house of power. If you can accept a queer Lincoln, you can accept queer people overall.
He should inspire us to achieve a true democracy for everyone.
Okay. Can you give us your thoughts so far, Romeo? You've been holding back, I guess, waiting for the end.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So, I kind of was doing some research on like this whole thought of Lincoln being gay, and even if when you look it up, there's like it sort of says that there's not really enough evidence to say that he was gay. And the only like evidence is in a note. It said Joshua Freispeed said, or I think yeah, to Lincoln or about Lincoln was a streak of lavender and spots soft as May violets, and like describing him. And at that time, a streak of lavender meant effeminate man, which was why people thought it, researchers thought it was connotated to homosexuality. But another researcher said that it was unlikely using that term because it probably meant like, so like Lincoln's, how would you say it, is not as like rough and tough as he seems and is more uh, neutral in a way.
Okay. I mean, it definitely seems to be a push, and it's good that you did the research on the fly. But yeah,
if I had more time, I'd probably do a whole research thing about it. But that's what I could find so far. The other thing
sure.
I wanted to ask is, so this video came out, and like looking at the end of this video. So where is this being released?
That's a good question. I would guess Netflix.
I've checked, and there's not a place that says where it's going to be released. So I think this video was supposed to be a blatant bait, because like they did not have like a, first of all, there's not a release date for it. Second, there's not like a place for it where like a platform is going to be released on. So that's something I thought of as soon as I watched this the first time. I was like, why is this video just bait? And then they're gonna later get, if they get pushed back, they're going to finally show like when it's coming out. I even looked at articles to see when it's coming out, and they don't even say when it is. So that's something I'm just a bit confused about. I'm not specifically saying it's just bait to get like attention towards it, but just it kind of feels like it.
It doesn't say on their website either. It doesn't look like.
Oh, it says on their Twitter. Okay, premiering 9/6/24. Okay, it's on their Twitter. That's more important than their website.
And
yeah, where is
Lover
it?
of Men movie here. Sorry, should have shared this. Yeah, Lover of Men movie 9/6/24.
Okay, that still doesn't answer the question on where is it going to be released.
Oh, I'm assuming it's going to be on their website for reality, but a lot of people are
Can
going.
you check the website?
Yeah, you can click on this link here, loverofmen.com. Sign up here, email address.
I'm on a phone.
Yeah, here. See, sign up here. They're trying to probably use the power of social media to really get this going. It's not.
Yeah.
We're probably actually going to get this going better than they can. I just saw this because of my interest in how documentaries, so-called documentaries, are sort of produced and the sort of rhetoric within them, which doesn't mean they're true. It's just about sort of the effective language. You can understand some of these documentaries, like how hard are they pushing a certain narrative, and what sort of are they sort of skirting over, like the Gawker, why the Gawker thing was compared to the red pill. Gawker thing like totally tried to make some of these people with questionable histories seem like better people. They had like people around them, character witnesses, to sort of fluff them up. And then they had this sort of analytical view about the people who pretty much got rid of Gawker in a more harsh turn.
Well, since we finished the trailer, I'm going to stay around for a few more minutes. We can talk about it. I do want to ask you something, though, Vincent, which is you seem to like deconstructing, as much as we've talked about tonight, documentaries and what people are working on and the messages that they want to promote, you just said. So I want to ask you, having seen a lot of my work, what am I trying to promote?
That is a good question. I have not seen your whole body of work. It just seems like you're trying to get various perspective, trying to understand how people see Gamergate through their eyes and sort of testing their boundaries here and there. Okay. Doesn't seem like you have a general narrative. I'm sure you have one. Do you have a narrative that you're trying to play up? Well, you definitely go with the sort
Today.
of narrative that the mainstream media misrepresented Gamergate in the media. But you have strong evidence to support that belief that you have. I think that's a well backed up belief. And
Yes. Yeah, I would say that, like, if anything, like, probably that basically that much of what you've probably read about this online or seen, like, from, like, certain, like, YouTubers, for instance, like, who've criticized it, um a lot of that's probably not true. Which isn't to say that, like, there's not necessarily, like, there might be certain things that they might include in their stories that might be missed from other perspectives. And I've also interviewed anti-Gamergate people, right? Because I think there's value in hearing out these viewpoints, and reached out to tons of the journalists. But yeah, I think that I'm not generally trying to promote, like, a narrative with the Gamergate stuff. A lot of people do, as I'm sure you've seen. Gamergate, especially in the gaming space, a lot of people have certain ideas about what that is, or what that was, and they want to use that to promote 2024 ideas and their 2024 idea, movements or
yeah,
viewpoints.
the woke, the so-called woke or DI people, the anti-woke, they have competing narratives. Okay, I usually recommend. Actually, it's hard to recommend the Never Knows Best video after his first video, but I liked it. It spoke to me because he used a lot of evidence. I disagreed with him in some areas, sort of the construction of the narrative. I mean, the difference between sort of having a story is you're honest with it. This is how our viewpoint. Okay, the narrative typically tends to be this is the truth. Okay, and it sort of ignores any contrary things. Maybe not necessarily lying, but sort of talking past the point. Okay. You'll see that pop up every so often, even more apparently. But I am conflicted on the narrative idea. I mean, most people have a narrative, but is a narrative based on factual things and being honest that this is how this person sees it based on this and this could be considered a narrative? I'm just not sure if that would be the right word for, but you could also be a very sly individual.
I could be very sly, though. It's something I mean, I'm worried about that, right? I'm worried that I am going to become captured, I guess, by my own works. So
yeah, you're definitely treading into TDS, man. Jeez.
You think so? Hit me on that.
The fascist sort of thing, but that I think
Am I wrong though? I mean, like, what do you want to call him, a fascist or like an authoritarian? Like, I don't know. I feel like we're kind of splitting hairs, but
yeah, it's just the word fascism. I think he fucking definitely comes across that way very easily. The cult of personality, he matches up very well with it. But I always think about the end game for any of these. As I said, I never try to ascribe the intent, trying to say certain people are certain things. I try to look at the outcome. And with certain people, someone like Trump, the outcome is rather failing. Okay. If he's a fascist, he's the most weak fascist out there.
Well, he's quite incompetent in many ways, like, no question. Like, look at his failed coup, right? It's exactly the kind of coup attempt I'd expect from Trump, right? Not like some super.
But did he intentionally do that, or see?
1,000%, right? He had the fake. He had the fake electors, right? He created the fake electors. He tried to get the Department of Justice to sign on to a letter falsely alleging election fraud in several states. He even threatened to fire basically the entire Department of Justice because none of them would go along with it, and then bring in Jeffrey Clark, a low-level lawyer from the DOJ, to have, because he was the only one willing to do it, and he was a low-level person. So yeah, I mean, like, this was 100% intentional. This wasn't like some, like, oopsie daisy, I accidentally sent my mob to the Capitol that he knew was armed.
Fair
and
enough.
He also did nothing for several hours, right?
I will say you do have the evidence on your side. You do have a compelling narrative there. I know you definitely want to get some people in the hot seat talking about that. Couldn't bait Adam Friend into that. I'm trying to
No,
stay.
he was he it's strange because he's very committed to this idea that he's one like a radical centrist. I like Anna Freda, to be clear. Like we follow each other
No,
on
he's an
Twitter.
enlightened centrist. I'm the radical centrist.
Yeah, he's we follow each other on Twitter. He interviewed me for my first book back in the day, in 2019. I'm on good terms with the guy, but maybe not now because he kind of went hard at me on Twitter. But I get along fine with the guy, and he's very committed to like this idea that like Trump did nothing wrong, and I don't think he's like really looked into it that deeply. So if he wants to have a conversation on this, I'd be happy to. And you can moderate too if you want, if he trusts you to moderate it.
I don't know Adam too well. I know a lot of people who do know Adam. I've talked to CT. I talk to those people, but I don't have too much influence. In fact, I probably burned some bridges with my video on Stitch and Adam when I had to defend H Bomber guy.
I know Lucifer talks to him.
Lucifer claims to talk to everyone. Lucifer the Doberman. Also Spoon. Okay. That would be an interesting person. Well,
He does
probably
have
would be useful.
connections to Spoon, though. They do talk. I know that for sure.
Yeah, and Miss Bar. Well, we know a lot of people who say they talk to a lot of people, and I mostly trust them. But you know how things on the internet go. But yeah, as for your particular thing, I'm not really feeling the narrative. You're pretty easygoing. You try to talk to people, see where they're coming from. I'm guessing you used to be more hardline.
Probably, yeah. I mean, like even my first book, I still tried to include like anti-Gamergate voices. Like I did quote them, and I actually had an anti-Gamergate person, Hannah Zamora, who I've interviewed as well for this one. I had her go through it with me, or go through it on her own, really, and then like send me feedback to how I can balance out the phrasing and stuff so it's not too biased. So like I even then I tried to see value in having conversations, but I was more dedicated, I guess, in my activism. Whereas like I'm not really an activist anymore in the same way, at least.
Yeah, I avoid activism. I just try to look at the facts that I can see and pretty much what the facts say and what the people do on each side that would have me trust them here or there. Narrative building is quite interesting. It seems to be incredibly a powerful tool, power politics.
Well, that's how people think, right? It seems like a lot of people, and I used to be like this too. And I probably still am. We probably all are to some extent, but people love to think in narratives. Like for a long time, my narrative, right, of the world was that the Enlightenment was this incredible moment in human history where we overcame, where we started to use like science and reason to try and solve the problems of the world, and we built and developed better systems, liberal democracy, for instance, capitalism, and invested in like scientific research to try and find out the nature of the world and the universe, and improve human societies as a result. Like that's like a narrative, quote unquote, that like I bought into for a long time. Like I guess like maybe still do, right? But like the people think in narratives.
Yeah, this is why stories resonate. This is also why I can't be too harsh against some of these, I think, unfair critics out there, because I understand they put a lot of investment in all this stuff. They can't let it go, and these companies are just completely mishandling these IPs. But maybe I have the libertarian mindset on that. I'm willing to find better and other stories. I figure these guys with these followings would be like, okay, let me find something else good out there that maybe isn't this, but they can't get they fear they can't get their audience along on it to promote these bigger things, these alternative things. Like if I had an influence, I would be like, there's a lot of audiobooks out there that are pretty damn good, and you should start supporting them. Maybe do petitions. Yeah, do petitions to try to get them made into movies, comic books, and sort of grassroots movements to sort of make these stories, uplift these stories, to give marketplace of ideas and entertainment a running chance.
Well, and let me talk about something that I know I'm very self-centered. True,
That's
actually,
fine.
I am, but unintentionally, just because like I focus on my own work a lot because I have to go through and listen to it and then edit it. So I do that for several hours most days, or at least a
I
couple
know.
hours.
Been
Um,
there.
Depends on the day. But one thing that I've noticed too, because for a while there, and I was doing like media tour interviews and stuff, and I was talking with people like you saw the E Zhang interview. And that was I didn't really want to bring up Gamergate, and this is so stupid of me. I wish I would have now. I don't like the way I handled that interview, both in terms of the technical side of things and also in terms of how I was in the interview. Because I knew that she was a bit more in like the progressive camp, not SJW or woke or whatever, right? But like she was a bit more progressive, and she didn't know a lot about Gamergate. So, and she's a game developer, so I was like, okay, look, I don't want to like go in and bring up Gamergate and talk about that and like get her into trouble within her social circles, right? So I tried
Yeah.
to avoid the topic, but she brought it up, and she's asking me like, oh, and I'm like trying to give like neutral answers. I'm sure you saw, and how I framed things, and I've done that
Yeah.
with a lot of the interviews I've done. I've given like neutral answers, and people find this, I think, not necessarily she didn't like tell me like, oh, hey, you did this bad, right? But I could tell that when I talk with people in interviews, and I give those really neutral answers where I don't come down on one side or the other. People always ask me like, well, what's your viewpoint? And even people in real life, like I talk to my uncle. He's like, well, yeah, of course. Like you're supposed to be like the quote unquote like expert on this stuff. People want to know what your viewpoint is. And I guess that's fair. But for a long period of time, I was like not willing to tell people what the fuck I thought, and I was trying to like avoid forming views. Because I wanted like avoid forming a narrative, quote unquote, that I was like promoting and like committed to. And I even said to my uncle in this conversation when we were talking about this, I said, well, if I start making like drawing conclusions from my work, if I start doing that, I could be wrong. And he's like, well, yeah, of course you could be wrong, but that's part of what you're doing, right? You're supposed to put this information out in the world, and you have to like draw conclusions to some extent for your work, and people want that, and it seems like people do want that, like because people give me a hard time for trying to give like these super milk toast neutral answers, and they really wanted me to like come down and be like, well, what's the truth, right? You're telling me this side says this side says that. What the fuck's the truth?
Yeah, I understand. When I was doing the clickbait stream for Grums, someone pressed me on, do you think Grums is a grifter or not? I'm like, I'll give him 80 to 90% that he's a grifter. I would just like to call him, a con man of some type. Okay, just a madman of media. It fits his history. Okay, how much of the money he raised did he spend on his stuff, or how much he spent on himself? I would like to know. There's a lot of things I would like to know there. I don't want to establish a narrative there. I can just say, you can say, point to evidence and say, because of this and this and this, it seems like this is the truth. Okay. I'm not going to commit to it. There could be stuff outside of my knowledge that I don't know about, especially there's also something you probably also are really scared to scare away some of these progressive voices that you want to talk to online.
Yeah,
I would assume
sure.
that to be true.
That's true. To a degree, I don't think that I'm like hiding the truth to do so. But I think that I talk about things probably in certain ways. Like, well, actually, no, I do 1,000% talk about things in certain ways. So, like, for instance, one of the people, I'll just fucking say it. I don't care. I mentioned her earlier. She did a 6-hour video on Gamergate, Savvy Lizer, and so a lot of my communication, my public communication, also privately too, and same thing with the Alt F4 conference, right? I'm sure you saw my coverage of that. A lot of that, or maybe you did, I don't know, but the coverage of it coming up, it hasn't happened yet.
Oh, yeah, you've mentioned that before, and I did ask you about that last time.
Yeah, so like a lot of my communication publicly about Savvy Lizer and her work, and about the Alt F4 conference, also about like Brianna Wu at various points. A lot of this.
You should press on that Brianna Wu more. I think that would get you more attention personally.
Well,
there's a lot of haters of Wu for good reason. but
yes,
you want to be friendly with her.
Well, I don't talk to Brianna Wu, okay? Like, I literally made a deliberate choice not to talk with her because she tried to claim in a group chat with 4 other people that that it was creepy, quote unquote, that I was reaching out to her to talk to her, and she was like trying to put that idea out there. I think so. I don't have conversations with who. I told her after that conversation where she was doing that with me in that group chat, with Wick, Short Fat Otaku,
gross, to be
and
honest.
Soyeto. I said, look, I'm not going to contact you again, and I haven't since. But at various points with Brianna Wu, Sabulizer, Alt F4 conference, these are more progressive people, or maybe not Wu anymore. She's like a anti-woke liberal now, I guess, right? But these are like more progressive people. The default assumption would be that like they're probably going to be more hostile towards me. So in a lot of my public and private communication, I've not lied or tried to cover up the truth or anything like that. But what I have done is use very diplomatic language, and also like tried to send like signals. And maybe this is stupid, but I did try to like signal to these people a little bit that, hey, look, I'm not hostile. I'm trying to be fair, and I'm trying to be neutral in how I approach this. And so I try to like signal to those people just in like the way I talk about things, and I bring up situations or I bring up their work or the claims that they've made, and I try to.
I think that might be a mistake, personally. Okay,
think
they
so?
want to because if you're talking about people, the pro Gamergate side and the anti Gamergate side, I'm pretty sure they know about biased. Okay, when I generally think a lot of them think when someone's talking about being neutral and ethics, there's at least a smidgen of criticism that probably, like, this guy isn't being honest. He's trying to be honest. No one does this. Okay, everyone's got something. I think it's just they think that way. The power politics sort of element, as you're saying, having a grand narrative is extremely effective rhetorically, and some people can pretty much self-delude themselves in a lot of instances to believe that someone who seems like they're trying to present this very unbiased and uncritically can't really be being honest. He's got to have something in some closet. They just press X to doubt.
Yeah,
I think
I can the way I operate, I think, is very unique, and not a lot of other people, I think, are as like quote unquote like neutral on this topic, at least as I am or try to be. But like, maybe the signaling was a mistake.
You almost virtue
like,
signal
these were
your
people
neutralness. Okay, it's
I do
signaling.
I almost way too much, but I did it on purpose, in part because like I do believe that like I wanted to get these people on to come and do an interview, right? Like that's like a big part of it, right? I have like an interest in bringing these people on my show, and like if they think that, oh my god, this guy's gonna be like a fucking heck who's gonna take me out of context and lie and scream over me, like I don't want that to be the impression that they have. And then 2, that's like not really what I want this project to be. I want this project to be a neutral exploration, or at least like that was like the original idea. Now I think the truth isn't really in the middle. I think the truth is much more like on like the pro side, which isn't to say that like no harassment occurred, obviously, because like people did get harassed on both sides, and like that's bad. That should be condemned. But fuck, I made this whole thing about me. What do you want to talk about?
No, we're pretty much wrapping up. I mean, I got more content out of this than I have. I thought there would be more on the sort of but none of us are really up with the Marvel stuff. I really was hoping someone would come on and push back against some of my positivity against the new.
You mean Tiamat?
Who knows? Okay, but it's Sunday night. Wish I could have got more dissenting voices. I like pushback. I really like people to challenge my ideas. Like, challenging your ideas, Tachyon, that you're being neutral. I could steel man some things that you're being too nice. You almost are promoting sort of this under the guise of being neutral.
What's the biggest case I've done that in? Tell me, please. Or just give me a few.
Oh God. Putting me on the spot with particular examples.
Well, Brianna Wu would probably be like the best example, right? Because like I have, and people have, a couple people have commented on this, and they've said that basically like, well, and Peter Coffin too, right? They'd say like, well, you're kind of like soft promoting like Brianna and Peter a little bit, and they might not like deserve their redemption arcs. Which, like, to be clear, Peter Coffin's change on Gamergate, I think that is genuine. Actually, I think I genuinely like Peter as a person, and I think that his change on that was genuine. Now, what he's trying to do now with promoting communism, I think that that's not good. And when communism came up, and it might come up again in part 3, I did push back quite hard. I think. I felt like I pushed back pretty hard.
Yeah, it's always a fine line when you're trying to get within. Like, someone came on when I was doing the whole Grum stuff, and yeah, we're both egotistical people talking about our own content. But I had someone called Leon, Words of Paradise. He has a channel, Words of Paradise. He brought on, like, yeah, you got a couple of anti-woke people to come here to argue against you. What about leftists? They would never do this. I'm like, yeah, I can't argue with that. So I've been trying to speak with them more, but I doubt any of the people I'm speaking with would want to come on and talk to me when I have some issues. Like, I don't know how many of the people, progressive people, still are really harping on the trans kid stuff. I think that's a lost cause. Okay. I think that's damaging their own movement, and it's stupid.
I have
just
a lot
from a
to say on
tactical
that.
standpoint.
Well, Vincent, if you're trying to get more leftist people, like, you mean like leftists in terms of politics or in terms of like gamer culture war stuff?
I would like to keep it within the media space. I have to know about the fucking politics to understand the media, because I think there's a good amount of it, but I would rather focus on the entertainment.
Well, there's a ton of people who'd probably be willing to talk with you, but they're usually more like the moderate progressive people. They're not like, you're not gonna get like Zoe Quinn to come on, but you could probably, like, the people, some of the progressive people I've interviewed, if you reach out to them, they might be interested in talking sometime.
Yeah. Well, I'm always doing different things. I don't know the next time I'm going to come up against a really dumb leftist point of view, because I definitely am really hyper focused on the sort of DEI movement at the moment. I'm someone who likes to follow things through, and this was a nice break, but we're pulling back into it. So,
well, let me ask you, Vincent, because you mentioned I should focus more on talking about Brianna Wu. She's got a lot of haters. I think that a critique of me that is fair is I think I have kind of like soft, like, rehabilitated her image. And I don't.
A lot of people.
Do you think
have,
that's fair? Do you think that's fair?
I think it's more on counterpoints in reality. He's been sweeping like hell for her when I've seen him.
I like counterpoints, and to disclose, he did say that he would endorse my if I do a GoFundMe or crowdfunding, he would endorse it. So just disclosure there.
You're trying to be honest again, and that's completely. I respect that, but a lot of people will be suspicious of that sort of stuff.
But he worked for Brianna Wu for a while, right? Or he I don't know like what his official position was, right? So like with the employee-employer relationship, which they don't have anymore. Like that, it's understandable that he's going to be a bit more defensive of her.
Yeah, I mean, this is a complex mess, and the sort of online social media figures just complicate things with all the drama going on. Like hell, just look at I'm not going to get into the Trump assassination thing too hard, but if you look at what they're doing, they're focusing on freaking Allison making a dumbass joke and her retweeting denims. It just seems
who? I don't know, Allison. I'm
the
sorry.
Grums and the whole group with the Gamergate do people.
Oh, I haven't seen. Yeah, I haven't seen.
They would rather use the fact that Trump got
Alyssa Mercante, you mean?
Yeah, her sort of a joke about that. They also tried to do that with another YouTuber who's on the progressive side of things, Mighty Keith.
Tricky? Okay.
Yeah, Mighty Keith.
Well, look, shit, dude. Do you want to talk about the fucking Trump assassination shit, or do you want me to
No, we're closing up. Okay, let's just close up before we say anything stupid.
We could get some good fucking content out of that. We could, but I'm not going to make clips out of this on my end. I don't think so.
Okay. I mean, I just don't know enough. I think we should learn more about this.
We
even
take
the
a couple
initial claim.
Yeah, take a couple days and then find out what the fuck who this person was, what their motives were, things like that.
Yeah, they're saying because he's a registered Republican that automatically he's a right wing. No, he could be registered as a Republican for many different reasons. I know people more conservative will register just so they get the easy opponent. Who you register to vote for in the primary is different.
Well, in some states they have open primaries. I'm not sure if Pennsylvania is one of them, but
I think
where it doesn't matter which state which party you're registered to.
Yeah, very good question. Very good question. Yeah, maybe look into it. I do like to see how information gets distorted over time. This is why I'm following this GG2 stuff. It's hilarious.
So
to see how it's going.
You say GG2. I know that Cabrutus, I don't know, or Cabrutus' personal assistant, Marco, he's trying to promote. He's threatening me, by the way. He says he's going to sue me if I tell people about what happened with him with Cabrutus and E. So naturally, I've told a lot of people about it.
Cabrutus.
Yeah.
Oh,
Which
yeah,
Sorry, I have a crush on him.
Oh, you do?
I think he's hot.
I mean, he's not a bad looking guy for sure.
I'm
Unfortunately,
into bear types.
he's making a lot of mistakes lately. That has nothing to do with his physical appearance. And he doesn't seem to own up to them. And he threatens people like me. Or, well, he doesn't threaten them. He has his PR person does it. Or maybe his PR person's completely half-cocked and no communication with him whatsoever about this.
Yeah, it's
But
always hard to tell.
It's hard. I don't want to
doing this in the creator's content, or if the creators send them out like minions.
Right.
It's always
Right.
hard
It could be the case that he doesn't know anything about this, right? But I did DM him and tell him, so he should know some. I told him some of what happened. But he didn't reply to that DM, despite replying to my other DMs. Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. What they speak on tells you more than what they don't. Well, what they don't talk about sometimes tells you more than what they do talk about. It's a whole.
What do you not talk about, Vincent?
I'm willing to talk about a little bit too much of everything. I'm going to my schizo theories. Like for this one, my schizo theory is, you know what? I blame the person who made Lincoln Vampire Hunter for this. Okay. All suddenly the LinkedIn fandom got conflated at Edwin with Lincoln. So they sort of made this fanfic in their head. And that's why they're pushing this, all because of Twilight. That's my schizo theory on this particular angle, why they're trying to turn Lincoln gay. So they can do a gay Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Does that seem fair enough?
Based. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, $500, and you don't get a gay Tachyon, but you will get Tachyon in a cat suit. So save up your money next month.
Wow. Your audience. Fair enough. Oh.
All right. Well, hey,
yeah, let me actually get you in. Let me actually get you to do your outro because I forgot last time.
Well, do you want to go first, Romeo, or do you want
Romeo has nothing to promote except for his art and Twitter, so he'll do it second.
All right. Well, hey, I'm Tachyon Blue. If you like what you've heard from me today, which I don't know why you would, but check me out on YouTube, Kick, or Twitch, Tachyon Blue. I'm also on Twitter. You can find me there as well. I talk about politics. I talk about the history of gaming, mostly through the lens of Gamergate, for better or worse. And I'm working on two massive projects. Well, one massive project and one small project relating to gaming and gaming history. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, politics, gaming, entertainment, a lot of the stuff that Vincent Martin talks about here, then come check me out.
Romeo, plug your Twitter. You're an artist, man.
You can find me at Partisis Romeo. Just literally just put an at, literally what you see on the screen. That's it.
Yep. Well, thank you for coming. And as always, discussions are important, no matter if they're the big stuff and little stuff. Don't take it too seriously. And please try to communicate with each other. Peace out. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Sure.